Hello. Today on the Loose Gadgets show. That sounded crap. Anyway, today we're talking about escapism. The holiday kind, not the Houdini kind, obviously. You know, the getting away from things. The many meanings behind the word, some of which I was surprised when we had this chat before the show on what the word can mean in terms of not just physically getting away, but all of the emotional bits that go with it. So, Mark, I mean, you even went and had a look at the dictionary to see what the other definitions were. Because there's obviously the escapology with the whole Houdini business. Then there's the escapism we all know about. Oh, I need to get away from it. I need to go to Spain. I'm going to have 2 weeks in Spain and get away from everything. Sit in a pub, a British pub, eating cheesy chips. Aye, that's getting away from it. I want to have Britain, but somewhere else.
You can escape into your 27 pints before lunchtime.
Aye, some of that. And wake up somewhere. Aye. So, there was a couple of other definitions in there that surprised us, though, that I hadn't really considered.
Yeah, what the way they sort of, I looked at, because I started writing a bit of a list, and I found I was writing the word escape a lot, and then I think, oh, is escape just the shorter version of escapism? And then it came up, it said, escape can be illustrated by the desperation of a prisoner, and escapism can be pictured as the flight of a deserter. So trying to get away from, where the prisoner must learn to cope with reality beyond his control, the deserter determinedly abandons his appointed reality in favour of one he prefers. So, yeah, it's like, if you're a prisoner, you don't really have much choice, but if you're decide you want to be a deserter, you do have choices. I mean, you've got to face the consequences, but, it just was an interesting way of sort of trying to separate the two. Because I started sort of, thinking about myself, whether I was escaping from things or whether it was an escapism. And so you sort of go back with, where you avoid things and think of little stories to bring in today.
Well, I mean, if you took it literally, escapism is the act of escaping, isn't it?
Yeah, I think.
But when you talk to people about escapism, it seems to have a more of a modern day. I don't know. Is it like a euphemism for something? Like it has another. It can mean, you can mean something else to someone, not the literal meaning of what escapism is, but it's something you can accuse someone of, for example.
Yeah, I sort of thought about, let's just take fiction, books, fiction, supernatural, Star Trek, and all that. So I sort of put that into the escapism sort of. But and then I started saying, well, why do you like it and I don't?
I've always loved science and sci-fi, for example, so I've always had an interest in how things work, how the universe works, and all of that. I'm not entirely sure where that comes from, because that's not really a family trait, but I've always enjoyed physics, and because physics helps you explain how everything works. It's the science of how everything works, I guess. But sci-fi in particular has an emotional attachment for me, because it was my one moment at home where the TV was just for me, and there was no bullying going on, no slapping about or any of that going on. It was just me for an hour watching Star Trek Next Generation. And I was saying this to Anne on Wednesday when we had our weekly catch-up, and it stirred up a whole bunch of emotions I didn't even know were there when I started telling her what that kind of thing meant. And I got myself all choked up. And there's a really strong attachment to sci-fi for me. This is why there's a strong association between nerds and comic books. Comic books are escapism into a world that is a better place where everyone fits in. Or certainly people like them fit in. People with more brains than good looks, typically. as people might say, although that's not always true, obviously. But those that have a different view of justice, have a strong sense of justice, which I find those that have been bullied or messed about in their life do have a strong sense of justice, of people being seen to get their comeuppance or karma, what have you, like seeing things visited upon them that they've visited upon others, so they know what it's like. So for me, there's that, which is weird, because I thought back to an episode, you know, when you said you're talking about happy places, and you know what yours is, and I didn't.
Yeah.
It's sci-fi, isn't it? For me, it's that Star Trek. I've started watching the newer series, and I can't think of a happier moment. And I just happened to pick up on it when I was sat with my tea on my tray. I was just about to start watching, flicked up the episode, intro music starts, and it's one of the very few shows where I don't skip the credits. I don't skip the intro. I watch it end to end, and something in me completely switches. Doesn't matter what mood I'm in, what state of mind I'm in. As soon as I'm in that zone, now it's the matter. Now it's the matter. It's almost conditioned in a way.
Here's an interesting thought for you. The fact that I tend to watch basically movies, anything that is factually based, I love. So the way I could flip it is that I am stuck in the past because any of those movies are based in the past, whereas you're in the future.
Yeah, I want a better place, and sci-fi offers visions of that. It's very I've been looking. I used to play a lot of online multiplayer games, role-playing games. I always preferred the ones set in space or set in sort of comic book universes, and they were either in the present or in the future. I hated anything that was in the past. I have a massive aversion to anything about World War II, World War One, all of that, and I'm miffed that there are entire channels still digging out news stories about it and saying, oh, they're hidden such and such of blah-de-blah. I'm like, wow, are we still talking about this? And it actually gets me all riled up. I'm like, wow, I don't want to live in the past. I don't want to even look at the past. I don't want to visit it. I'm not interested in it. What I am interested in is, are things getting better? And is there a better place we could be? Are we heading towards it? What does it look like? What are the visions of a people like us? Like, where could we be? What does utopia actually look like? I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in everything we've done wrong. Because when you look back, as a people, we get less and less informed, less and less intelligent as the further back you go, because we unlearn things, you know. So as you go back, oh, well, now there's no medicine, you go even further back, or now there's very few tools in industry, you go even further back, there's less knowledge, you go even further back, the printed book doesn't exist, you go even further back, you know what I mean? So there's nothing back there that interests me, nothing whatsoever, other than maybe it's the discovery of certain scientific things and how we figured them out, because that kind of practice we can still use today. Then it's proof that some things are found by accident. But I'm certainly not interested in modern history. I've always had a bit of a thing with Greek gods and that. I don't know why that is. Greek mythology and Zeus and all that.
You saw an Adonis and you thought of me.
Bollocks. I just see them. I think maybe it's the way it's been presented, because I can think back to I used to hate history lessons, but the one that I did enjoy, and maybe it's because the teacher did. He was talking about mythology, Greek mythology, the writings of Homer and all of the Iliad and the Argonauts and all of these sorts of things, and these kind of quests that had deep moral tales behind them, and these all-powerful beings that were sort of seen as gods or spoke of as gods, but you could almost see them as fallible, right? And they did things wrong, whereas Christian gods and whatnot appear to never do. Even when they do, oh well, there's a reason. He was actually teaching X, Y, and Z. So right, no. No, we were made in his image. We can make mistakes. That's rubbish. So I've found a little bit of escapism in reading Stephen Fry's or listening to Stephen Fry's audiobook about that, but it gets far too detailed and I turned it off. He needed to summarise better. But for me, the future is generally all I'm interested in. Where are we going? Don't care where we've been. There's tons of stuff going bad and back then. And we don't need to dwell on it.
Yeah, I was just thinking I'm working out, I'm a contradiction in terms thinking about this subject, because everything I do is about focusing forward, but clearly my focus forward has a limited visibility in the future. So I'm not thinking like you in terms of that length. But when I say I'm focusing forward and I don't like to think about the past in terms of because it's gone, but when I say I'm a contradiction in terms because I enjoy so much watching movies from the past about facts. So I just got to be careful about how I talk in the future, because I say it's all about focusing forward, but then there's a major part of me enjoys sitting watching movies from the past.
You enjoy learning things from the past. That's what it sounds like to me. If you're watching,
that's good.
If you're watching non-fiction, then what you're actually interested in doing is right. Let's figure out how they did that and how that happened, and then you take all of that and then you offer it to whoever you're training and saying, right, all this happened then. Yeah. What we learned from it is this and this. So going forward, do more of that instead, or take this into consideration. So I'm not sure you're a dweller. You seem to be more of a learner from the past.
So stuff like Air and Tetris, the movies that are out recently, I watched both of them that give you that historical element and I think you're probably right. There's something I can learn by the makeup of that process that you can take forward and sort of do something different. But I told you the story about while I was away in Thailand, and I had this epiphany that I was running away from things. So was I escaping from things, or was I in an escapism by being in Thailand? So it's like, and then you sort of realize, right, you've got to come and face up to reality, come home. So yeah, and I've worked out I've been doing that a lot. I've been doing that a lot over sort of 20 odd years, or maybe longer.
It says something, not that you just not just that you identified it, but that the moment you did, you were like, right, that's not carrying on. Because some people, once they know a thing, it doesn't necessarily change the thing. Like, it's I'm always doing right. So, and what have you done about it? Oh well, knowledge should change things, but it's proof that it doesn't always. But for you, it's like, oh well, now that I know it, I cannot escape the fact. And then I've suddenly realised it, and then it all makes sense. That right, I've got to go home then.
I looked up the process, so because we do that, don't we? I looked up the process of if you're running away from stuff and how you start facing up, and it gave me sort of a four point sort of perspective on it. One was recognise that you're running away. Great.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing in the short term, let's take a movie as our example, may give you some short-term immediate comfort from what's going on, which is okay. So it gives you some short-term immediate comfort, but it's not a long-term solution. So if I get comfort from watching a movie from history, but I'm having a particular problem with something long term, I know the movie has only given me a short ability to escape from it. I need to think about after the movie, how am I going to work through the problem I've got in my mind. The second bit was what am I escaping from? What bothers, scares or worries me? So okay, what am I going through at the moment that I feel like I'm trying to sort of escape, or using escapism. The third was look for solutions that allow us to solve what our worries are, might mitigate the tension that it generates, and helps us to ask ourselves, how do I want to be in the future as a person? What kind of person do I want to be? So that sort of gives it a little bit of a more medium term. And then the last bit was take some action. and I love the phrase. It's from Carl Jung, apparently. You are what you do, not what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit like I don't believe what you say, I only believe what you do. Was one of the coaches I met that said that to me. So I don't believe anything you say, Mark. I only believe what you do.
Yeah, it's derived from the same sort of quote, isn't it?
Yeah,
a man is defined by his actions, isn't he?
Yeah, because I think a lot of us talk a good game, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of confidence people out there that know all the right things to say. But if you ever went back to the house, it's a tip. Turns out they're a hoarder and they've got 1,000 newspapers in the dining room.
Yeah.
But they're out there doing motivational speaking. You know, you can win the day. You go back to the house and, Jesus, when was the last time you put the vacuum around this place? Well, it's not about me, is it?
It's almost like does what you're preaching, doing, or what you work to. I always said that. It's like being at work, you're doing it. You're responsible for something, so you do it well. But when you go home, you don't give a crap about that process, and you just live like a slob, or drink too much, or whatever,
Yeah, I'm guilty of a bit of that. That I can be obsessively tidy with certain things, or not.
Yeah.
Or not. There isn't a middle ground. It's either.
It's just what I'm working out about this subject actually is that, I say I'm this type of person, but it's a load of bollocks. I'm actually a mixture of everything.
Aye.
Yeah.
You have to accept it. Doesn't matter how hard you try, you've still got a flaw somewhere in the plan, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just, but we got in the you were saying, are we escape? We talked about, we did it last week, but are we escaping when we're talking about our 2 weeks holiday? Is that our escape plan for the year? And it's like, because we don't. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because we go there and we're like, oh, I could easily live there, but we've lived abroad, and it is nothing like you have envisaged it, is it? It's nothing like it.
It is interesting when you can even do this with when you're designing something, right? That you'll have this picture in your head, and it'll look like this, it'll function like that. You go and build the thing, and there are loads of physical laws that you hadn't included in your head. There are loads of constraints you hadn't included in your head. There are loads of skill shortages you hadn't thought. Oh, well, that bit'll be easy. Oof, it really wasn't. Costs, all sorts. And we went, I lived over there 2.5 years, partly as a challenge, because I was told, oh, you're too much of a homebody, you'll never go. I went, really? See about that. So I went. I'm not saying I 100% enjoyed the experience of being abroad, especially how bloody expensive it was. You've got no chance of being rich in Hamburg, I know that much. I came back with next to out, thinking, ooh, especially when I saw the contract they offered to get me to go over there, I went, bloody hell.
Yeah.
Aye, but 43% of it goes away in taxes, though. I was on 20 grand less when I came back, and I came out with the same amount of money. It's utterly bonkers. All sorts of. Oh, they're getting rid of that solidarity tax, apparently. That 2% you had to pay towards East Germany.
Oh, for East and West. Yeah.
Aye, well, we're over there. Apparently, that was supposed to be ditched ages ago, and in the last few years, that's come up in Parliament over there, because that's meant to stop at some point. But there was all sorts. 7.5% on your was it 400 or 500 euros, or 7.5%, whichever is the lesser of the two, towards your health insurance, because everyone had to have private health insurance, and that tenner you had to pay to the doctor if you hadn't been there in 3 months.
Oh yeah, that was funny, that wasn't it?
Yeah, a tenner to register your number plate, then a tenner to go and register this form, then you had to pay a tenner to go and register. So why is it €10 everywhere? See, well, it means that, like here, you don't make an appointment and then not turn up, because then you have to pay a tenner. I mean, I know they've clamped down on all of that since, and that's a lot of that stuff doesn't exist anymore. But it's not the fantasy world and the Disney holiday that you think it's going to be. Oh, we'll go there, and oh, the villas are so nice. Everyone there is so nice. No, every single country, every single city, town, and village has a bell end in it. At least one. Every single one. None of them are devoid of bellendery, because, you know, there are dickheads everywhere. So
if you're unlucky,
you're not going to go. It doesn't exist.
If you're unlucky, the bell end is ringing the bells on a Sunday as well, isn't he?
What you want to hope is the bell end's not you.
Well, yeah.
But it was an experience. But I wouldn't say it was an escape. For me, it was like, well, it's a chance to advance. And of course, I did. I leveraged what I did over there to come to something better over here. But
I'm not. I watch a lot of the Brits abroad stuff. I like, I've got this fantasy in my head about, living abroad in the weather climate. But is where we are so bad, or is it, what are we trying to escape to? Or are we running towards something or away
grass
from
is
something?
always greener, Mark.
Yeah.
Our grass is all brown. It isn't, though. Oh, it is. Yeah. It is. Look at how green it is over there. You get there and all of a sudden, I'm feeling really homesick.
Yeah.
I miss this and I miss that. Is it not a case that when you're here, you take a million things for granted and you get quite complacent? And then when you get somewhere else, you say, I'm going to go over there. It'll be all romantic and it'll be blah. And do you know that in Spain there are just orange trees on the street? Aye, but they spray them with chemicals though. You can't just reach up into the tree and pull an orange out. They spray them with stuff. You cannot just eat them. Aye, well, it's those little finer details you start. And when you get there, you go, well, do you know what it is? Everywhere's sort of the same. In some respects, there may be some cultural differences, obviously, but that we're not fundamentally different when you take it down to our genetics. I guess that we all have bad habits. We all have good habits. We all have people we like, people we dislike. The way we treat people we like and dislike. We might have different ways of dealing, different ways of going about certain things, but it's not like you can leave the UK and then go to some city that's got all these futuristic buildings and everything is all sound from an ecological point of view, and they've got all these space age, and everyone's got jetpacks and that. There's cars in this country, there's cars in that country. That country uses radiators, so does this one. Well, they've got a mixer tap and you have separate taps in the UK. What's that about? Not everybody does. Not everybody does. Just the taps that you've seen happen to still be separate because you've gone to an old building or something. Everybody has those. Well, your plugs are different. Yeah, well, so they're actually safer than yours. If you broke down the engineering, they're far safer than yours. That's why they're the way they are. You can't electrocute yourself with a British plug. You can with an American one or an Australian one or a one in Spain with the two prongs and whatnot. So being abroad, there's this romantic vision of what it's like. I don't know. I mean, I don't do holidays. Like a holiday is not an escape for me. It's just example. My parents asked me one year. We're all going as a full family, so nephews, everything, across to Florida. All right, and we're gonna go to the Kennedy Space Center, a bunch of other things, and whatnot. Right? He said, "Are you coming?" And we're gonna get this villa, and we're all gonna share this. I was like, "Well, that'd be chaos for a start." I said, "But," I said, "So how much is it?" "Oh, it'd be £1,500 now." And I could buy a car for that. No. No, I'm not. Like, but it's a big family holiday. We've never gone. I was like, it's £1,500 though. I'm not spending that on a holiday. What have I got in return? Photos. Like, I haven't physically got anything for that. Like, there's people I speak to regularly. Oh, we've gone here. We've done that, and it cost me about $4,500. Eh? No. Nah. I could buy 3-4 PCs for that. What are you about? I'm not spending $4,000 on a holiday. on something ephemeral, like you go visit a thing and you come back with nothing other than dirty clothes and photos, and maybe it's a t-shirt. Does nothing for me.
No, the memories.
Yeah, but they sharp fade, and your brain eventually, within seconds of having them, they're not the same as the event themselves. You unless you have an eidetic memory, you're going to romanticize those memories at some point, and you're going to forget certain details. You're going to think, did that really happen? Then you're going to add little details, remove little details, change certain details. So those memories, in essence, mean nothing, because that memory, if you could go back in time and watch that event play out, versus the memory you have in your head 5 years later, a year later, it won't be the same. There'll be all sorts that you thought happened then that actually didn't. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but memories, yeah, it'd be interesting culturally. Go and see how different it is. That's kind of fascinating. Because I've been to a few places. It's not that I haven't been to a few places. You know, I've been to Spain and Denmark and Thailand and then and Germany. There are very few places around our islands that I haven't been to. Up in the norths of Scotland, up in Inverness and Aberdeen, and across to Glasgow, Edinburgh. The only place I haven't been is Wales. I think the closest I've been to Wales is Bristol. Well, I've never actually crossed over into seeing any of that, and I should. I've had friends over there, and it looks very pretty. So, and a place worth visiting. Quite different to, considering I've spent my entire life near the coast, right? So, well, almost my entire life near the coast. But it doesn't really hold, like going on holiday doesn't have that sort of, I need to get away. Nah. When I need to get away, I watch something that takes me away. Some people read books because they'd rather use their imagination to get away.
Yeah.
Than to go somewhere, because then you can make that destination anything you want it to be. Whereas you could go across to Porto something or other and then have this romanticised idea of what all that looks like. You get there and you went, that was a bit, yeah, you know, this, I'd kind of built the whole thing up in my head. Whereas you can't really build up an imaginary place in your head because you are building it up, if you know what I mean. Like, that's the purpose of it. You're meant to be making this imaginary place that you can escape to. It's probably partly why writers write, I would imagine.
Yeah, I like the fact that you know, one of the couples I watched on this Brits Abroad program, and I sort of, you know, resonate as I get a bit older. She was saying, you know, she got arthritis, and since she moved to the warmer climate,
yes,
you know, symptoms have basically gone.
Yes, I've heard that many times.
I get that bit about getting away for that reason, you know.
Yeah.
Because actually, you're improving your life, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a bit different when you can say, you know what it is. Like, there's part of me that's most of the things I watch are American, so American dramas, you know, Grey's Anatomy and all that good ones. Right, where they're always complaining about places like Seattle being such a rainy city. I thought, I could live in a place where it rained more than it was sunny. It's my favourite kind of weather, right? So there'll be a place out there that's like that. Or there'll be a place out there where I don't necessarily have to suffer SAD, you know, the seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the year the sun's up. There are places up north where it's dark for about... it's about 12 weeks or up to 12 weeks where the sun literally doesn't come up.
Yeah.
You might see a little bit of a glow on the horizon, that's about it. But then the rest of the year, the sun's never truly down. I thought, I could live somewhere like that.
Like Iceland and places like that, isn't it?
Yeah, you can, yeah. It'd be Iceland, the north end of sort of
Norway.
Alaska and Finland, and that, you know, around that sort of belt. Near the Arctic Circle. Greenland as well. I watch a few webcams of airports in Greenland, like Nuuk, the one that's been on one of those ice pilots shows. And they've got a webcam in the control tower where you can watch the flights, and I've been watching the change of weather and how it was middle of the night here and they're only about is it an hour behind, a couple of hours behind, something like that. It was middle of the night, and I went, the sun's still just above the horizon. Now, of course, it's kind of far north there, isn't it? And it's interesting just to see it when the clock on the screen is like, it's 11:30 at night, and it's not even dusk. You know, the sun's low, but it just looks like morning sunshine. You know, just like a low sunlight. It's fascinating, that stuff. I wonder what that's like. They must have a completely different metabolism and body clock up there to what we have. Imagine the habits they have about locking down during those 3 months when it's pitch black. Like what sort of cultural differences the sun has, like the impact of the sun, not having it and having it has on how they actually live and how businesses might run and how the lights they'll be on non-stop for 3 months, and then they're never on for the rest of the year. You know, and then trying to get to sleep. Oh, we've all got blackout curtains. Well, I can sleep. It literally doesn't matter what time of day it is. If I'm tired, I can sleep. I can sleep on a train, sleep on a plane.
Yeah, we had an unusual occurrence this week, didn't we?
Oh yeah, you were actually up.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. You were texting in the middle of the night. Well, I'm not finishing at 4 a.m. What's that about? That must have knocked you out. Knocked you for 6. So we're recording on a Monday.
Yeah.
Although Sunday, you'll be out with
it was Sunday morning. We actually had a conversation at between 4 and 4:30 in the morning.
It was your drive home, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah. I was saying to Anita, I said, I spoke to Simon this morning. She was like, what? I was like, I know. It's just strange on all levels, isn't it?
It is,
being up at that time.
The sun was on its way up. The sun was up by the time we finished talking.
Yeah,
that's my experience. I mean, what's a you go camping and that? So is that escapism for you? Is that getting away from stuff and things, like being able to switch off and do something? Is it because you're doing something different, or is it because you're getting out of the house?
I think you're right. I think it's different. But what's interesting about it is Anita says it's probably one of the only times she sees me relaxed is when I'm doing that. I find it easier to switch off when I'm at the caravan or camping or whatever. You know. Is
that because there's no computer, no phone call, and you've already said to everyone, I am on holiday these days, so you've got no obligations those days, so you truly can kind of go, I'm not missing anything, forgetting anything, or late for anything, so I can just sit here and read a book.
Yeah, watch. Do people watching? Watch the grass, watch the wind, watch whatever. Just and you're right. It must be a sort of an escape. I've got one coming up in a couple of weeks, and then another month after that, and whatever. But it made me think: what the ultimate escapism? So, adultery.
Ooh, that's an interesting form of escape, isn't it?
Yeah.
Escaping from a bad relationship, or
the
lack of something in your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, when you combine two of them, so alcohol allows you to sort of go into a different dimension, doesn't it? You add alcohol, which takes you to a different dimension, allows you to escape to somewhere else. But then you start to add on another escapism, which is where I say, like you're at a nightclub or something, and you running off into the sunset with somebody else you shouldn't be, and it's like, it's like
it's got to be escapism for somebody, that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You think about it like escaping from maybe even trying to run away from the decision of breaking up with someone. Or I'll try it out. I'll see how I really feel afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are just dicks and just can't, and one's not enough, right? But there's a mix. There's a mix. Because
that perception of, the chase, getting it and enjoying it versus, imagine you stayed with that person, that then becomes the normality, and then are you looking again to escape?
Well, I've spoken to some people that just say, well, it starts out as like emotionally cheating because they're not getting something. And then they feel validated by this other person. because they're not getting validation at home with the person that they've been with. So there's an attraction to suddenly feeling more like yourself and having the things that you're saying and doing for them noticed and validated. So they're trying to seek some sort of emotional completeness, maybe, or having some of those things returned. I don't know. I mean, I've met some people who literally cannot switch off. I'm sort of one of them, if I'm honest. But there's some people that just find it hard to switch off. There's always something going on. So even when I'm doing one thing, there's something else. There's always something. But I'm used to that. So that for me is normal. It might look abnormal to other people with that, but to have a couple of things going on at once, watching the telly whilst I'm busy creating something and I'm listening to someone else, that's sort of normal behaviour for me. Switching off can be hard. Getting your brain to shut up can be hard, and the only real escape I have is when I'm watching a show that completely grips my attention, like my sci-fis, and watching last night that what do you call him? That's Thor.
Exertion 2 or something.
Extraction.
Extraction. Yeah, we got there.
Right, and it kept popping up. I mean, listen, I'm like, I can't remember the first one. You know, when you know you've watched it, but you can't remember anything that happened in it. When this is a follow-on, you're like, right, where did he end up? And
they did a good job on that, though, didn't they?
Oh, but
they reminded you.
Yeah, they did a bit of that at the beginning. And it's one of the most epic action movies I've ever seen. It was just non-stop, quite graphic, just sort of stuff and things, and the fights were utterly amazing. And his female team member, I'm never good at remembering character names, but she kicked the living daylights. But it looked believable the way they were moving around and whatnot. Yes, she'd totally get stuck there, and you know when you normally go, he could have just done that to get out of that. There was loads of that. There wasn't a point where I could have went, oh, well, there's a plot hole. He could have just done this, and he just didn't because it didn't fit the story. No, it was just non-stop, and I forgot what the hell was going on whilst that movie was on, because that's all I did. I just sat completely focused, and it's rare moments like that. For me, it's usually Stargate SG-1 used to do that to me. Star Trek kind of does that for me as well. I could be sat there with the remote in my hand, and I've been sat there in that one position for an hour and not realised that I've completely switched off, and that I've still got me TV remote in my hand, and I'm just literally just glaring at the telly. Don't know what time it is. It's got dark since.
You made me think about something there. Just go over the bit about, you were talking about escapism related to Tate. I didn't get it. Tate, what's he called? The bloke.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate, yeah. What was? Is it because he went away on holiday to escape and he's now stuck in a bloody country?
When did I say that? I remember saying that. Anyway,
you said it on you said men not being men.
Oh no, that was another idea I had for the show, because they're sort of, she's been compared, Pearly Things, that show, she's been compared to the female equivalent, but she's saying that she said something controversial. Women shouldn't be allowed to vote, right? Which got her on Piers Morgan. Sometimes I think people say these things and then they decide to offer the context later, but they'll say the thing without any context just to rile people up, and then they'll give the context and go, oh, is that what you meant? Right. She basically said, look, she was talking about equality. She said, but nothing's equal. Nothing's equal, so you want to have equal say in everything, and you want to have equal pay, you want to have equal this and equal that, but how many of you are bricklayers? How many of you work on oil rigs? How many of you are on the front lines of the military? It just rattled off a list, and of course there was this lefty, what's her face, from Politics Joe. Oh, it's saying, well, the statistics that you apparently read, So there was no need to get insulting like that. She's clearly well read and quoted off a bunch of things and where she got them, and you just went, well, your apparent facts. Shut up. Is there really need to be combative about it? Like, can you not just discuss or maybe use your own facts to disprove the facts that she's just said, rather than insulting her and trying to discredit where she got them from and that what she might be saying is rubbish, right? So,
it was a different episode, was it?
Yeah, I was thinking about another episode, but you could argue that he went back home, didn't he? I bet
he's still out there, isn't he?
Aye, all sorts going on. But then you wonder whether some of that is because of the revolutionary change he was bringing about, and there's just people out there wanting to shut him down, and people on the left have louder, shoutier, more aggressive voices than those on the right, even though those on the right are seen as aggressors. It's actually the other way around, in my view. This is how it appears to me in my very basic view of the world.
It's interesting in that, you know, I never a lot of the subjects that, you know, I always let you sort of, if I've got something particular, I'll mention it, but you always come up with some really good ideas and episodes, and I don't really think about them too much until I start doing a little bit of work, and then I start thinking, I need to think a little bit deeper about this subject, because I'm realizing stuff on these subjects now that, like I said to me, the first realization I got when I was looking at this was, I'm quite contradicting in terms of how I perceive my escapism. You know, when I talk about sort of movies versus forward thinking. And
wasn't this one of our aims, though? Wasn't that one of our aims for doing this? Was to kind of go, "Oh, I didn't know that about myself," challenging ourselves, and
not many of us do that, though. Not many of us sort of do that soul searching and look in the mirror and say, "Why do I think this way? And am I consistent in my approach on this subject?" Well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm quite contradicting, so I've got to be careful about. Well, I'm always about focusing forward. Well, you're not, Mark.
Nah, you do enjoy the past, but is it not right? Is it not scary to look at yourself, to figure this and hear some truths? And two, it's scary because you're then left with a decision: do I act on that to fix it, or to change it, or to freely admit it, or not? So it can be scary to find the things out, but it can also be scary that you know that once you find them out, you then can't ignore them. That if someone says to you, "Why do you keep doing this?" and you knew you did it because you figured it out the other day, you've then got no excuse for it to still be there if it's something that's destructive. Right? So once you've seen it and you acknowledge it, you're then kind of obliged to do something about it. So let's just not bother looking. Let's just not look.
Yeah.
If I don't look, I won't find it.
Yeah, you're right. I remember the epiphany about. So I'm in Bangkok. I live in a private estate. Got a swimming pool nearby. Get good salary, and you realise it doesn't work. And it's just like, oh, you've got to take a hard look in the mirror to say that doesn't work, and you'd rather go back to the rain. Yes, actually, I would rather go back to the rain.
Well, it was similar. It was similar when I left Germany. There was a thing I wanted. I tried many ways to get it. I'd been supported in trying to get it from a couple of different angles, and I just wasn't going to get it. Now, why do I want it? Can I stick around here without getting it? So, well, I've kicked up such a stink about it now, so I've kind of got to live by that. So I either have to give a genuine reason to recant it and say, right, that's no longer important to us anymore. But then if I do that, then that means it might never happen, because I've totally withdrawn everything that I've said. Then it might never happen now then. So I got myself into a position where, and that was a bit of an epiphany for me. It was right, I'm in this spot now, so now I've got to follow through on it. But you know me, when I want a thing and I've got my mind set on it, you're not going to deter me from it. And even if that means making some massive decisions, which in this case was coming home, I was going to do it. So I think you already knew at that time that, oh well, we've lost them now, so you're just going to have to suck it up. And no one tried to make me stay. I noticed, and at first I took that as a bit of an insult. But then I thought, well, if they know me well enough, they know they'll not talk me out of it. Right? Because I've given them plenty of opportunity to give me the thing, and I know for sure I'm not getting the thing. I'm off then. And when I say I'm doing the thing, maybe they know me well enough to know that you're not going to talk me out of it. Unless you give me the thing that I'm going for, which in this case was management. Then no, I'm going. I want that because I know that's my next step. And I was pleased enough to just know what my next step was, right? So I'm not saying it wasn't nothing about living in Germany was an escape for me either. It was some of it was a bit of a trial for me. Some of it was interesting. It was nice to have in some ways to have a proper Oktoberfest and that over there, and do all of and finding out German culture is not what we expect it to be. That we say, oh, well, this German efficiency and they're all that doesn't exist. They're not efficient.
Yep.
Do you know what they're good at? Repeating things.
Yeah.
There's a difference. You can mistake efficiency from being very happy to be set a task and to repeat it until the end of time. They're very happy to do that.
Yeah.
And the moment you go, oh, we need to insert this into that process, they form a union and say, no, and they get scared. They get scared when you change the process. They get scared. So that there is, I'm sometimes correcting people say they're not that efficient. They're very good. If you lay out the process, they will follow it, and they will follow it exactly the way you've laid it out. But the problem with that was, where did all the suggestions come from? Everyone else.
Yeah, the other nationalities.
Yeah, everyone else. This is broke, and we need to do this. They were quite happy to just sit and do a thing and do the same thing all day, every day. Everyone else wasn't. And what were we there for? To change everything, to improve it, to get it refined and refined and refined. They're not very good at refining things. They're very good at setting up and analysing a process and then just following it till the end of time.
Yeah.
Precision. I'm not even sure about that. They're obsessive. But it's always somebody else that sets up the process.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. And they do have a sense of humour.
It's tough, isn't it? But you get why they were reasonably successful for a while in the Second World War, because they just followed type, didn't they? They followed script.
Churn stuff out.
Yeah.
Here's a plan, churn them out. And they'll churn them out in bulk. Yeah. But that said, some of the most efficient and fastest workers with the lowest error rates were always from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And I even noticed that when we worked in Hebben. And it was basically sort of Brits versus everyone from Eastern Europe, like Lithuania and Poland and Romania and all these other places.
Yeah.
And they were always at the top. Always at the top. Possibly even top 5. You'd probably have to get to position 8 before you saw someone who was even remotely British. I don't know why that was. But they just had this work ethic. The Polish are some of the hardest working people I've ever, or Eastern Europeans in general, seem to appreciate what they've got.
I would so escapism, conscious escapism, is good. Subconscious or unconscious escapism is not good.
What do you mean?
So if I'm escaping into a movie, and I'm conscious about it, that's okay, because that I understand what I'm doing. But when I'm escaping with some things and I don't realise why I'm doing it, then it's not healthy.
So running away, you mean? There's a difference between escapism and running away. So trying not to look back at a problem, saying no, there's nothing broken there. No.
I'm not eating me greens. I'm not having cauliflower.
Ugh. Little white trees.
Little white trees. Yeah.
Just no.
Yeah. It was really interesting that I have to say. And although my escapism is the word interesting, but I know about it, so I can deal with it. So yeah,
Well, it's not your escapism. That's just your habit. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I do the same.
yeah,
Like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I should say fascinating a lot, but that's because I watched too much Star Trek. So I was
Yeah.
a bit of a Mr. Spock or a Commander Data. Back in the day.
back in the day.
But no, it was canny. I think some people treat escapism as a very jolly thing without realising that there are other implications, like you're running away from things. So as long as escapism isn't running away, it can be quite a positive.
Yeah, we might save the what was it, the giving money to a 17-year-old, giving them 35 grand to allow them to escape. We might save that for next week, might we?
Yeah, well, we might know who it is by then. But there again, knowing the BBC, we might not. There's probably going to be a 1-year inquiry first,
Yeah,
where they investigate themselves.
yeah, and abstain from all blame.
Yeah, how big of a company do you have to be allowed to investigate yourself? Like, where's the threshold?
Yeah, when we're allowed to
Nonsense,
stop
me.
paying.
Huh?
Yeah, when we have the right to stop paying the license fee, that'll probably be the time, won't it?
Oh well, they're looking after a license fee increase this year. A match with inflation. You imagine paying another 10% on that garbage?
Bollocks.
Nah, no.
Yeah,
I'd rather eat cauliflower.
exactly.
That's saying something.
We'll set you a
That's
test.
So as long as you're not running away, you could call it escapism. That you're just
Like
trying
it.
to get away. Have a night out. Some people, it's just a night out. It's a Friday night with the lads or with the
Recharge.
girls. A
Yeah.
recharge. If that's what it's for, then you could say that's escapism. That's having an escape, getting away to the country or going somewhere else. But if you're doing it to run away, you're moving abroad to get away from something, to not face something, deal with something, fix something. Then it's one kind of escapism, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Good
on
one.
that note, we're going to escape.
Yes.
I'm going to be posting some videos.
Videos.
You know where our comedy clips. I'm going to be hiding them on Facebook. Yeah. What?
What was it? You did a still from me this week, didn't you?
Oh, that. Do you know what it is? I haven't read them out for about 3 weeks. Every time I post a new one, I'm like, damn it, I need to read them out.
Yeah.
Because there's been some canny ones. I'll go back through those posts. I'll write them all down, and I'll read them out. Right, so I'll read them out next time. At the beginning of the show, I'll read them all out because some of them were quite funny. And your latest one, I think, you're clearly thinking about cake. Because that was sort of a dirty look on your face, wasn't it? It was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah. Sugar.
Oh, buttercream.
Escape to sugar.
Look at the icing on that.
Yeah. Lovely.
Right, but until then, there's bound to be something else to talk about next week because it's the planet's
Coming
nuts
out.
at the minute.
Yeah.
We may have to talk about Biden at some point and how much he hates the UK. That's starting to
Yeah.
put his... Oh, I don't know. He does though. I don't know. He does.
Him and Richie at loggerheads.
Aye. Rishi Sunak.
Aye.
That's it. Or whatever he called him.
That would
Can't
be
believe
the
he
porn
did that.
name. Richie Sunak.
Isn't that usually your... is it your first pet's name?
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Oh, it's
Oh, and your mother's maiden name.
that's it. Snowy Hall.
Sounds like a euphemism, that. Oh, right in the snowy hall.
Snowy Hall.
Mine was Ben Burke. Although that's a porn actor I've ever heard one.
It. Flipping
Isn't
it.
it? Aye, he's been in a few. Yeah, he's fixed a few washing machines, or said he was.
Yeah. Brought me span around.
Yeah, what's that lube for? Well, it's just in case, the nuts are a bit tight. Hey, me! Oh. Right, so until then, there'll be a lot of... Oh, well, we need to get some new photos sorted. I've run out of photos.
I sent you some garbage yesterday.
Aye. Aye, literally. Literally, aye. I'll chuck them up. Then I'll be hiring out them jokey videos, those shorts. See how we get on with that. But until then, like, subscribe, share. Most of all, if you could do some sharing, get us out there. The more you share, the more we get known. Aye. A day, a share. A day, a share. Why not? And then we can keep doing more stuff. Until then, I've said until then about 9 times now, haven't I? About that. But thanks for listening, and take care.